about to watch is a live stream that I recorded live. Now, if the content that you find doesn't really match what you're looking for, it's very possible that this is a video that's part of a series. So if it doesn't make sense where you're finding this particular video, then just click on the description down below and you will find a link that will take you to the full series, and you can start with video number 1 and go through all of the videos in sequence. If you like the content and it helps you out, then great. If you'd like more information, then you can always check me out at FileMakerMagazine.com. Right, welcome back. Another video that we are doing in our series here while we are stuck at home, taking a look at learning FileMaker. All right, this video is about creating fields, but doing it the smart way. In FileMaker, we are all probably pretty familiar with being able to create fields. We go into our Manage database. If you're not familiar, that's under the File, Manage, and Database. You should become familiar with that keyboard shortcut. You'll see me use it all the time here. There's multiple ways to add fields. Let's just go through some of them. One, this is the old school, pretty much the only way that you used to be able to add fields was in the Manage database. But there are other ways in FileMaker. It's beneficial to know that we can. In layout mode, there is a field. I'm accessing that with Command or Control K if it is not showing on your copy of FileMaker. As soon as you do, the field palette will come up. This is a way that we can create fields. We can do that if I make the window a little bit smaller and I zoom in right there. We can see that we can click this little new field and a new field will be created in my database. There is also another way that we can create data, and that is when we are in browse mode. FileMaker has 3 different views. We can see them right here of form, list, and table view. Table view will allow you to create fields. So if I switch this view, and FileMaker is going to ask me. Now, if you're working with file locally, your FileMaker will not ask this question. It'll probably just change. Because I am using this file hosted, we can see that right there. Because of that item in parentheses, and I have not intentionally renamed the file, I know that this file is hosted on a copy of FileMaker server, and it just happens to be on my same machine. I will go ahead and say yes. This is also another place where you can add fields. So if you need to add a field, you can click that little plus in list view, or excuse me, in table view. I've used all of them, but the predominant way is using our defined database. Now, I want to get all of my fields into my FileMaker data. Currently, what I have is a situation in my one table, and if you don't know this, by the way, we have our list of our tables, our fields, and our relationships in the dialog box. I could intentionally click fields here, but if I'm in the table view, if you double-click the table, it will take you to the fields of that table. A nice little trick right there. So, I could take the time to say, okay, I want a last name, and I'm going to type in last name, and then create the field. I could take the time to put in first name and then just go through down the list. It turns out that I don't want to take the time to do that, and it's already been done for me. And it is my hope that through the result of this lesson, you start to look for these potential opportunities. And the short of it is this right here. This whole video boils down to this one thing that anybody who is either in technology, learning technology, or not in technology, if it exists once digitally, you never need to enter it again. So that's what this video is about. This is a smarter way to get these fields in. Yes, I want to name the fields whatever I want, but all of the naming has already been done for me. In particular, the fact that this particular driver's license, an American driver's license, has these keys which identify the fields for me. In this document that I showed you how to download in one of the earlier videos, I'm going to put in, let's say, DCS here, and look for that, and I'm going to go down to this last page where it tells me my mandatory fields. This is where everything has already been created for me. These are my field names right there. I am simply going to copy this, and then I'm going to take it into a text editing program, and then I'm going to get that into FileMaker. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Also, in preview on the Macintosh in particular, unfortunately, because I'm shooting this on the Mac, I don't know if there's equivalent on Windows. There's a very powerful keyboard shortcut to know in order to highlight things, especially if you go get a PDF from somewhere else. It is the Option key. Notice when I zoom in, notice the cursor, and hopefully it's changing on the video. I'm holding down the Option key, and when I do, it turns into what's called I believe it's a vertical select or a column select. Notice that I am able to highlight whatever I want, what falls underneath my cursor within a PDF. That's pretty cool because a lot of PDFs that you use, they might have columnar data that allow you to grab just a column of what you want and is really helpful. But in this case, I just want to grab and highlight all of these. I'm going to copy it because I'm going to use those as my field names. I may modify them, but hey, they've already been typed in and they have their matching key values, which is something that we're going to need. So I'm going to go over to my trusty text editor and I'm going to create a new document. I happen to be using VS Code and I'm going to paste that in. We're going to see that I got the bullet characters, something that I want to get rid of. Let's see if I can shrink this window so that when I'm zoomed in, we can see everything that I'm doing. There we go. So I am simply going to highlight everything that is right there. I'm going to cut it off of this first one. I'm going to go into the Find and Replace on this text editor. I don't think I need to explain this, but most text editors have a Find and Replace, and I'm pretty sure you know how to use them. I'm going to replace everything with nothing, getting rid of those characters. Now, here's the key thing about this particular situation. I want to be able to use these values right here for the field names, but I also want to be able to use these key values because I'm going to be matching them up to automatically populate the data from the time that I capture a license so that the data goes right into the field for me. User doesn't have to do anything. They click the button scan, and when they scan the license, boom, all of the fields are populated. That'll be another video, and we'll have to take a look at getting these out. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all of these values. At a later time, we'll make the map. I'll have to think about how I want to do that because I just want to get the names in for right now. So the question is, how do I get rid of all of these letters? Well, if you are learning FileMaker, you are now also going to be learning regular expressions from the get-go. I am going to teach you whatever I know about how to do it fast and best. So when we go into our Find and Replace again on this particular application, and on many applications, there is an option that's known as regular expressions. Now in text, regular expressions is a way to match a pattern of text even if it's different values. So in this case, we know that it's three characters, but they're not always the same characters. So the pattern that we can see right here is very clearly that we have this dash character and then 3 characters. So I'm going to copy the dash character, put it into this find. It's going to highlight all of the occurrences that would be replaced. But now I need to get rid of these 3 characters. There is, in most applications, there it shows me right there, use regular expressions. Now, if you are going to become a developer, you have to learn regular expressions in order to be worth anything in the development world. Pattern matching within text is a key thing. And it turns out that I can say for each individual character, which corresponds to a period, I want you to select all of those 3. Now this works out in my favor because I didn't teach you a whole lot about regular expressions. Regular expressions will take some time to learn, but you'll notice that if I also do this, I will also be able to highlight all of those characters because this is basically saying I want you to grab one character after you have grabbed a space, a dash character, a space, grab one character, and you can grab as many as you want, is what the little star right there means. So I happen to know that I could have done it the 2 different ways. This is literally saying I want you to grab any one character, another one character, another one character, and I can replace those with nothing. And we'll have to do a lesson at another time going in depth into all of those. And it looks like DAC did not get grabbed right here, but we're not going to worry about that. All right, so how can we get these into FileMaker really quickly? We missed another one right there. And how can we make it so that this fits the format that we want? Well, we want a camel case sensitive. And trust me, I'm taking the time to explain this to you. But once you follow what I've done in this video, if you go through the example yourself, you can do all of this really quickly. I can do this in just a few minutes to get this into my FileMaker database the way that I want. Of course, this is taking a lot longer. So I want to get rid of all space characters because I do not put spaces in my names, and I'm going to replace that with nothing. I also now want these in all lowercase. Well, I'm going to do that all in one fell swoop. Most text editing applications, or many different applications, allow you to do that. Let's select everything, and in this program, it's got VS Code has this option of Command-Shift-P, which you can run something, and you can see right there it actually is coming up as something I can do. I can type in a lower, and there it is right there, lowercase, and it puts everything in lowercase. Now it will be up to me to go through and change these to what I want. If I do want that number and I want that name, of course, if I see the pattern, I'm going to do everything with names like this. I'm going to say everything that is name, I want it to be name like that, and just replace it. Do it all at one time. Much easier, much quicker. Virginia specific class, so on and so forth. I think you get the idea that I would probably come in and do date of birth. So rather than me taking the time to do that on all of these, I'm now going to show you how to get them into FileMaker quickly. First off, I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save it as a particular file name. Fields, and then I'm going to use one of two different formats that FileMaker supports. One is CSV, which stands for comma separated value, and the other one is TAB, which stands for tab delimited file. I'm going to use CSV, and I'm going to save this on my desktop. I access that really quickly with a Command D on the Macintosh. It jumps to the desktop, and I'm going to save that. Now, this is not in a comma separated format file. You can always see what a comma separated value file format looks like by simply exporting from a spreadsheet program. Google Sheets, Numbers, Excel, anything that will export as a comma separated value will show you what it looks like. There are two different specifications that I know of. One of them has everything is quoted with your commas, etc. But FileMaker will recognize the one without the quotes. In fact, if you export from FileMaker your data from a table, just a few fields, you'll see that FileMaker wraps quotes, I believe, around the fields and then puts a comma. But FileMaker will recognize that without the quotes because the quotes are usually there to protect just spaces. But if you have embedded commas, which is the delimiter in comma separated value, then there's some other format that does that. Long story short, we just want to get this into the format of our headers. So I'm going to use yet another find and replace, and I'm going to find all carriage returns or new lines. There we go. Notice that I still have this regular expressions turned on. So this /n is a regular expression representation for all hard returns. And remember, in FileMaker, that's a decimal 13. What am I going to replace that with? Well, I'm going to simply replace that with a comma. And I can see that I'm going to need to get rid of this / territory of resistance or issuance. So we will replace that. And effectively what we've done is we took all of our, as I get rid of this / and I save this, all we did is we got this into the format of what would be a comma separated file from simply just copying from this. We didn't have to type the names. We just want to use what was already there. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, you're probably going to want to go and rename some of these, but for the most part, if most of them are done, I don't need to rename sex, height, eyes, address, city, state, zip. It's right there for me. We just put this into a comma separated format. Now, this file does not have any data in it as far as FileMaker is concerned. Well, I should say it does have data. When we import into FileMaker, we have the option of saying whether the first row is field values or not. And normally this would look like, okay, what's the customer number? Let's say it would be 002. And then the family name would be, like my last name would be Petrowsky. And then the family name truncation. Is that how it came over? Family name truncation, which is a stupid name for probably middle name or whatever. Definitely I'm going to rename these. But you can see that what I'm doing is I'm mapping the data right here. Now, the only purpose for doing this, as I leave this without any extra data right here, to create this field is simply to get this into FileMaker's format. So here comes the magic. I am going to reveal FileMaker for me to show you that FileMaker as an application is ready for you to bring data in. You can drag things onto the application, and if FileMaker recognizes it, it wants to bring that in for you. That's as opposed to doing an import into a known file. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a new file just for the purpose of creating field names for me. Yes, it sounds silly, but I will drag this comma-separated file on top of FileMaker, and FileMaker will tell me, I'm going to create a FileMaker file now. Where would you like to place that? I would like to place that on the desktop. It's now going to import these into the fields, and let's see, there's the data right there. Where is the option to say that these are field names? Use as field names. There we go. This dialog in previous versions of FileMaker, I believe 18, FileMaker 18 was the first version of this new import dialog. So if you're using a version older than 18, this is not what the dialog will look like. But we had some magic happen right here with this switch. Notice that what's coming in, row number 1 of all of the data, can either be interpreted as data, or we can say use it as field names. What is FileMaker going to do? It's going to create these field names. And I can go ahead and just convert that file, and I really don't care. I only created this file for the purpose of having saved myself the effort, and I'm now able to go into the define fields of this database, and there's all of my fields for me. Right there. I can now use the copy button and the paste, and when you're dealing with a lot of field data on the first time that you're going to create a FileMaker database, this sort of saves you a little bit of time. If I only had 5 fields, then yeah, I'd probably take the time to just input them in the way that I wanted. But with this, I know that I have a field for field match in terms of getting my fields here. I can take the time to rename them if I want. Issue date, I just go in here and I'll change this to an uppercase D and click change. It's just a little bit of cleanup. But for the most part, my whole point of this video was to tell you that if the data exists, just use the data that's there and figure out a way to get it into FileMaker. In this episode, the trick was basically, if I have a comma-separated file and it has field headers, I can specify the names of those field headers to become the names of fields in a temporary file. Then in that temporary file, I can just select all of those fields, copy them, go over to the main file that I'm working on, and then just paste my data. Now at this point, I'm not going to paste the data right here, because what we're going to do is we're going to think about the process and start to develop this database in a way that makes it modular, that makes it such that we aren't just going to shove things in as we need them. We want to think about things before we develop them to see what the impacts are, and we're going to ask ourselves questions about, does this make sense? What might happen if we do this? What might happen if we do that? And it'll make us a better developer and build a better database. So I think that's going to give me my content for this particular video. If you have questions, go ahead and get those ready. I will be jumping to the questions. I will be cleaning up these names when I am offline, and we will have our data. And what we will be doing in the next episode is we will be taking this same data and we will be creating what's known as a data map. And we are going to map it such that our extensions that are here, which is within our data, as we can see when we look at the JSON based on our capture, having learned the let function and the while function, we have all of our designations right here. We are going to be able to have that data flow directly into our fields as a result of a map, a data map, matching the keys to the values and what they need to go into in terms of the fields. So stick around, that will be a cool video. I'll have to determine if I'm going to shoot that directly after this one, but of course if you're watching this after the time I recorded it, you're able to just load the next video. So let's see if we have any questions. Currently we do not, looking off screen here. No questions have come in for this particular video. If they do come in after the fact, then I will go ahead and answer those. Otherwise, I think that's going to be a wrap for this video. My suggestion to you as homework would be Go find some data that you're working with. Find out if it already exists somewhere. See if you can copy it from a PDF. Practice on Macintosh with Preview that Option key and dragging to highlight a column of data. Using a text editor, convert it into a CSV file and make those headers something that you can use, and then just drag it onto FileMaker. See how easy it is to create a large number of fields directly from your data without having to manually enter them. It's a really cool thing. All right, so I think that's a wrap, and I will see you in the next video.